Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn. And this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. I have a very special guest today. We had a synchronistic meeting in Paris a couple of months ago, and we've become friends. She's a beautiful woman. Her name is Debra Putt. She has studied, practiced, and facilitated a variety of healing modalities over the past 25 plus years. And most recently, during the last 3 years, has discovered and used the tools of Access Consciousness, which is the event that we met at. Even though I wasn't a participant at the event, Debra was helping people get to the event. So what she loves about these tools is that they're simple to use with amazing results. She lives by the sea in Littlehampton in the UK with her husband, James, and 2 cats, Pasha and Luna. She loves to swim, dance, write, eat delicious food, take classes that enhance her coaching and life skills, and ultimately makes a difference in the world. And she does. Welcome, Debra Putt. I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
Thank you. Me too. It's lovely to reconnect with you again, Dawn.
Yeah. So we met in Paris, sort of a chance meeting, and you were involved in the workshop that weekend called Access Consciousness, which you told me about. And we were talking for like 30 minutes while you were trying to do your work. And I was like, what is this? This sounds so interesting and exciting and applicable and all of the things that I love to talk about. And I know you were you went to a weekend in Dublin this past weekend. So you want to share a little bit about that to sort of introduce yourself and Access Consciousness and all of the things that we're going to delve into, because I know this is going to be a very deep and meaty and also enlightening and inspiring conversation that we're going to have today.
Yeah, cool. This past weekend I was in Dublin actually attending an advanced body class. The previous weekend I was also at a 3-day body class. And these are amazing classes where you really get to nurture your body through various processes, where you work with one other person. You're doing, you're swapping, and a lot of the time your body gets to be really relaxed. You're releasing stuff, but mostly it's just you can feel the energy moving. And essentially whatever is going on for you, the person that you're working on as they're receiving, and the person actually giving the process just really communes with their body and asks the body what it requires. And also maybe where the energy moves, and then you're maybe the body is asking you to put your hands in a certain place, and you can often feel the energy moving quite dynamically. And other times, so you can, as the practitioner or as the person running the processes, sometimes you can experience heat or cold, as in a lot of healing modalities. But it's a very nurturing space, and the peace that in the whole room, it's quite a large room. I'm not very good at gauging how many people were on the course, maybe 70 or something like that.
Wow.
So the sense of peace that was there was amazing. And where I met you in Paris, Dawn, was something called Symphony of Possibilities, which is probably as advanced as the advanced body class, but it's not necessary to get into that, but suffice to say, it works, because often we have pain maybe in our bodies, but it's really, what is your body aware of? What if pain is just what you're not willing to acknowledge, a power that you have? And also it can be held in our subtle body. So we're working on not just the physical body, but the subtle bodies also, which can, stuff can get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And
well, I feel like a lot of people don't really listen to their bodies unless it's screaming at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And often when it gets to that chronic stage, that the body requires maybe quite a lot of processes to run on it. And so really it's acknowledging, what would you choose? Because I see a lot of people, they have an MOT on their car. I don't know what they call it in the States. They check up on their car, or they get their nails done every week or whatever.
Maintenance.
Yeah, all out, but they're not really they're not listening to their bodies, even what they kind of they're eating, or because it's really interesting with the body. I think we have a lot of points of view and preconceived ideas that people who have dieted and yo-yoed, they've done zillions of diets and then it hasn't worked, and they might have a point of view that certain foods are quote unquote bad,
good or bad, right?
Or bad. I mean, and it might be completely contrary to what you would ever normally eat, but maybe your body requires that, and maybe your body only needs a little bit, not so much. But I think a lot of way we check out, we go unconscious when we're not listening to our bodies.
So let me ask you, when you were in this body work, when you were giving the energy to the person, giving the process, how could you? I know that you said, sometimes there was maybe warmth or heat, and sometimes you just felt some energy. Was there a way that people's body moved or physically responded? It was visual, or it was just all like a feeling sense?
Some bodies move quite dynamically. Others, they just completely go to sleep, which is when really I think they receive the most, because they're not more open to receiving. And also, I also ask the body I ask that, so I get out of the way, so that the body only receives what it can receive. Because these processes are really dynamic, and then to overload it is really not a kindness to the body. So I know people might be, oh, I've got this going on, I've got that going on, and blah blah blah, and I'm like that. I'm like impatient, get it all done now. But actually, and that really comes of working my body hard over the years and just expecting so much of it and just push. And now I'm much more aware that, hey body, what would you like? And so it's really being mindful about and asking that that the process, that the body can receive the maximum contribution, but also to be aware of and only what you can receive. So that's really key.
And what was it like when you were the recipient, when you were the receiver? How was it for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. Sometimes I completely lost lost consciousness, as in fell asleep or went into like a different sort of consciousness or mode. Other times I
like a meditative state, maybe.
Yeah. And I particularly felt a lot of energy coming out of my feet. Sometimes the feet was really, really hot. I felt some pains at some point down my legs. But really it was very relaxing, and and sometimes there would be heat and sometimes there would be cold. So the blanket was on and off, it was on and off.
And because I think when you were talking about giving, I was thinking about how challenging it is for many of us to just be and receive.
Yeah. And that's really down to the body and the individual. I mean, I always ask myself when I'm receiving, and this is one of the access tools, it's to really, I ask all barriers to come down. All the barriers, because we just build up these walls of defense and we refuse to receive, even though we might desire to receive. In actual fact, we're so defended that often we choose not to.
And so how do you think that people can drop their defenses and be open to
Literally
receiving.
asking to ask all barriers. I would say barriers down, barriers down, barriers down. And I'd even say all levels, layers, and lifetimes, barriers down. And anything that doesn't allow that,
Uh-huh.
I let that go.
Huh.
Also, sometimes expanding out. We're an infinite being. We're not out, we can expand out our consciousness, and with the barriers down, hopefully that would really put you in a place where you can receive more.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can perceive the body, the other person you're working on, if they've got lots of points of view or fears or whatever. It can be like working with something really solid. And then it's just my point of view, it's like, hi, and being with that.
Uh-huh.
Whatever you're presented with, being with that, being that space and running the process. And it's also really important, like it is in a lot of modalities, when you're giving it, to be really comfortable yourself, making them comfortable, because there might be different positions. They might be on their side, on their front, on their back. So obviously you make sure they're comfortable, but equally as the giver, it's really important that you're comfortable also, because you can be in that position for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
However long you feel the energy running for.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine the whole room just was vibrating.
Yeah, it was just a sort of a piece that, yeah, was amazing. I mean, I've been in classes where there's lots of noise and laughter, and because people get to a sense of bliss or joy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong. Some people are just really quiet, but it was very quiet. It was very, very peaceful.
Mm.
So yeah, I didn't necessarily, I know what you mean. I didn't necessarily feel it vibrating, but the sense of peace and ease was palpable. So that was
Mm.
awesome.
So can you imagine if your whole life could be like that?
Exactly. And it is choice. And moving through being in the question, which is one of the things I love about Access Consciousness. A lot of therapies and modalities kind of, they have maybe an agenda, or they're maybe telling you what to do, whereas Access is about empowering you to know what you know, because we do know. Even if we're telling ourselves we don't know, we do know. We've just covered it over with a load of other stuff.
Yeah.
So we're a miracle just waiting to be discovered.
And so how do we discover ourselves?
Well, to be in the question, one of the things I like to ask is, what if there is no right or wrong? What if there's no right? What if there's no wrong? And there's just space and there's choice. We live, everything's kind of polarity here, good and bad, right and wrong. But what
Uh-huh.
if there is no good and bad? What if there is no right and wrong? And that, for some people, are like, what do you mean? But actually, when you really allow that and be with that in itself, that question itself can bring a lot of peace. And then you stop fighting all the time, you start defending, and you allow yourself to be.
Because I think that people put judgments on all sorts of things, themselves,
Everything.
other people, other situations out in the world, and I think especially the things that we define as bad, like when somebody is physically harmed, abuse, wildfires. I mean, things that are destructive and harmful to an individual. And maybe that's a judgment. Maybe that's me saying a judgment already, right? That something is harmful or
But what if
hurtful.
that's, yeah, but what if that's an awareness? What if even abuse, you had an awareness of something else?
Such
And maybe
as.
that person could hear it, and maybe they couldn't. Well, like say, like the forest fires recently in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
someone could have, a really strong point of view about that. But what if that was the actual earth regenerating itself?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, I think, the more you resist and react or align and agree, that's kind of judging both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Judgment is it's kind of endemic. It's where we all go. But consciousness includes everything and judges nothing, even judgment. Because often what I would do back in the day, and still do it, is, oh, I'm judging myself. And rather than, oh, cool, now what would I choose?
Mm.
It's like, oh no, I'm judging myself, and oh, not again, and going down that rabbit hole.
Right. So you continue
Which
to
is
judge yourself, judging yourself.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, rather than, or what if you could be an allowance of that? Because that's the other thing. Because it's a bit like I said about dieting earlier. If you make if you deprive yourself, your body's going to want, just to balance that and go eat stuff that maybe you're judging that you shouldn't eat.
Uh-huh.
Um, I've kind of lost my train of thought. Um, but with judgment, yeah. So if you can be an allowance, that's what I was going to say with the body. So if you could be what if you could be an allowance with whatever your body chose, because maybe you've deprived it for so long. So maybe you do want to go pig out on whatever, and rather than, oh my god, this is terrible, what if you could just be an allowance and enjoy it? Because
Mm-hmm.
in that way, your body is not going to require that for that long.
Right.
Once you're done, then you can start to balance. And equally, if you're judging yourself, it's kind of, okay, what if I could be an allowance of this? Because the more, then of course you're defending it, you're making it wrong, you're judging yourself, and it's just you're in that spiral, and that doesn't really create much room for awareness or space for a new possibility.
Uh-huh. Well, okay, so when you get into that spiral, do
Mm-hmm.
you probably don't even categorize it as a negative spiral? Like, I mean, are there negative and positive polarities?
Only if you kind of you think there are. I mean, whatever, and that's something else I wanted to talk about was our points of view. Our points of view create our reality, not the other way round.
Uh-huh.
So people often would look at their reality or their life and just, oh my god, this is terrible, I've got no money, or this person is really horrible to me, and focus on that rather than, I wonder what point of view I've got. And then you could look at, oh, what must I think, what must be going on in my world to kind of have this happen to me or attract it. When nothing happens to you, we choose it. And that's the thing, we're choosing it. And that can be challenging for some people to hear, because they'll have all of these stories about, well, this happened, this happened, this happened.
Uh-huh.
And that's not wrong either. But it's really looking at, is that working for you, having that point of view? Judging that person or that the boyfriend or the girlfriend or the whatever who was horrible to you or cheated on you, or that's, you can have a point of view about that. And what if you could let that go?
Well,
What if you could have a different point of view about it?
I think, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking of women that have been abused, physically or sexually abused by a partner or a stranger or whatever. And
Yeah.
so my mind immediately goes to, why would I create that for myself?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I create that awful experience that
Yeah.
brought me so much hurt and
Yeah.
pain and heartache?
Yeah. Well, again, sometimes this is not easy to hear, and it's not something that you would maybe say to a lot of people, so I might be putting myself out on a limb here and get a lot of judgment. But what if, it's kind of if you're looking at past lives, or say everywhere I've been and done that, I mean, of course, there's going to be a level of grieving or anger or getting through that abuse, choosing to look at it. But when you've gone sort of deep enough, but if you're stuck in blame and the story, to ask a question, how is this serving me? What am I getting out of this? What if I could let this go? How would that be different? Because people then start to really identify with being the victim. And that's not wrong. None of it's wrong. It's not wrong if you never let it go, if you're always continually angry, and if that's working for you, great. But I think for some people it gets to a point where there's always a choice to let it go, and then maybe another level of grief or anger or whatever comes up. But it's always kind of, what else is possible? What would I like, rather than focusing on that? And I hear that people need to grieve, go through whatever they need to go through.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of, I wonder what else is possible.
Yeah, I think.
What reality would I like to create now?
Yeah, as a result of that thing that happened to me, because.
And also, piling all of that, I hate men because.
Right.
That, and
like making mass judgments based on a particular experience, whereas I feel like we have to acknowledge this human part of us, because our emotions tell, our anger and our sadness and our disappointment, they're all things that help guide us back to where you said when we're supposed to be really remembering our truth and our light and our potential, and those things that happen to us that keep us stuck in our emotions. Those are the things that keep us in that victim mode, that feeling of powerlessness, that feeling of blame and shame and judgment and criticism. And so I feel like we have to accept both the human aspects of ourselves that can be before or while or during that we can grieve, grieve for the loss or the disappointment or the anger or the sadness or whatever, so that we can transmute it into what else is possible. What do I want to do with this thing? How can I turn this heartache and sense of suffering into something that empowers me and can, maybe help support other people. I feel like a lot of, this is why I started this podcast, because of my own heartache and suffering. And I said, you know what, I want to normalize this for people, that whatever you experienced is valid and normal, and how can you overcome it? How can you create a better life for yourself? How can you make positive changes? How can you turn this, basically like turning lemons into lemonade?
And also, when you talked about blame, shame, guilt, and what if all of that is the distraction to what you could be creating? We're very we want to problem solve and get through it. What if there was nothing to get through? And that might seem really like, what do you mean? But it gets to a point where I think in this reality, we're so entrained and ingrained with, and so many points of views are thrown at us, and people walking around. I mean, how many people have been abused? How many people have been betrayed in the whole world? And we're very all of us are very psychic. Like, we don't realize how psychic we are. So a lot of it, yes, we experienced it, but what if we're picking up everyone else's hurt and anger and blame and the shame also?
Like carrying it around for other people, or just
Yeah, or just picking,
just feeling it.
Just picking up on it. But I think ultimately, what is so kind of radically different certainly with access is that, and no, I think, when I first had therapy, the first thing I realized, and it was so empowering, what do you mean I have choice? I can choose.
Yeah.
And choice is amazing, and it's very empowering, but it can be very challenging when you're choosing to let go of something, because even if it's painful, often we've held it for so long, we've locked it into our bodies, and so we can actually experience, like, feel bereft when it's gone. And again, to be an allowance of that. But for me, the question is, I wonder what else is possible beyond this. If I didn't know abuse, what else is possible? If you could wipe the slate clean in that moment, what would be possible?
I feel like that's it's like carrying a huge load behind you, of bags and bags of junk. I'll just call it junk. that keeps you tied to the past, right? It keeps you stuck in that place back there when. And so you're dragging all of this stuff. It makes your body heavy, it makes your heart heavy, it makes your spirit heavy, and you feel like this is my lot in life. I just have to cart this around with me. And if some way you could just let go and leave it in the past, if there was a
and
way.
what if
No, just how much more light would you feel? How much more free would you feel? How much more powerful could you feel? And then your focus would be what's in front of you, or what's right here with you right now, instead of all that junk that you've been carrying with you for years.
Exactly. And how potent are you to come through abuse in the first place? I mean, how strong that, what if in you being abused, you kind of saved other people from the same thing? And again, that's an interesting point of view. And maybe people wouldn't agree with that, but it's certainly worth looking at. And listen, we've had billions of different lifetimes, so I think we've been and done it all. So there's that part of it also, which, again, I'm putting myself out on a limb. I mean, I've kind of acknowledged that, and I think sometimes on a deeper level that's different. It's difficult to kind of get to that point where the abuse that you're aware of this lifetime is horrendous, and what else is possible, that you survived, you got through it, and that's amazing in itself. So I think a lot of it is acknowledgement, and I don't think we acknowledge because we're so stuck in the story or the pain or whatever, and we can see it, we identify it's in the it's in our world all the time, and so we're not feeding on it, but we're aware of it, and so that gets projected and all of that, and then the judgment, and then you're still locked in it. So what if you could
go ahead.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
So what if you could acknowledge, hey, this happened to me, and no longer be at the effect of other people's abuse. So what if you could, you know, you might get triggered by seeing something on the TV or hearing about something, but what if you didn't have to go into that rabbit hole and go down that spiral again? What if you could create your life so that you could literally, it would just be gone, like you said, not looking to the past, just really being present, and then creating a future where your life is whatever you'd like it to be, amazing, with relationships, whether you want to be in a relationship or not, that are kind and nurturing.
I was thinking that you're not letting that define you. I mean, it's a part of you because it happened to you, but that doesn't, it's helped you. I mean, you are a result of all of the experiences that you have, but you choose which ones you want to hold on to, and you want to, it's like, how can you use that to redefine who you want to be right now in every now moment. So that's the whole, I mean, this is what I love about you know, our conversations that we've had. It's like, you choose. What do you want to choose today? What do you want to choose in this moment?
Yeah.
What are you choosing to focus on?
Yeah. Because what you focus on, you get more of, right? Which is why I said your point of view creates your reality. So if you're forever like, you know, I'm frightened of men, or this or that, or that's going to just put that barrier is up so strongly that you're more likely to have the same thing happen to you again, because you're actually attracting it.
Because your present is actually a result of all the past. It's not the result of this now moment. It's like,
but if you have barriers down, if your barriers are down, and truly, when we're defenseless, that's when we're at our most powerful and potent. It kind of seems counterintuitive.
What do you mean by defenseless?
When we're not defending, we've not got our fight, you know, mode on. We're not going against men or against whatever,
yourself,
women, you know. Yeah, I mean, there are women who abuse, right? Yeah, being defenseless, as in, where you could just, nothing touches you. You can be a bit like the rock in the stream, where things, everything just goes around you. You're not being a brick wall and everything has to this against you, which can be really, really tough and not fun.
Tiring.
Yeah, right.
But if you just stand in your own presence, you know, if you're that rock, I love that analogy of being a rock in the flowing water, because this is how life is. Life flows around us, and sometimes we get sloshed on by the waves, and sometimes the stream is just calm around us. But if we can sort of figure out how to stay
but even if it's a big storm and there's a big load of water coming at us, we could like, wow, that's okay, this is intense, this is a lot of water, rather than, oh my God, I can't cope, but you know, and it's easy to be in that, oh my God, this is too much, I can't do it, this is overwhelming. Well, okay, that's, and in that moment, what if you could go, hang on a second, lower my barriers, you know, because we go into trauma, drama very easily. It's easy to do that, especially with, you know, where we're, the state of the world at the moment. But what if, we could have the point, wow, that's a lot of water coming at me. Okay, and let it just kind of come, because it's,
Mhm.
and let it, what if you could and also, what if you could receive from everything? What if that so-called bad stuff is, what if you could receive from that? What is the gift in that?
Mhm.
um
Like the gift in my my marriage that I struggled and cried a lot during.
yeah,
And the gift
yeah,
is I'm living the gift right now.
yeah. And have you acknowledged yourself for that?
Um, yeah, I actually have. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and it's not a one-time thing, Dawn. It's something that you could do every day,
Yeah.
and every little, even if it's the tiniest thing, to acknowledge um that, wow, I'm actually in a place of gratitude now,
Hmm.
gratitude for that person.
Yep.
Now, that might be ways down the line for some people, but it doesn't have to be. It can literally be a choice.
Hmm.
But I think we're so vested in holding
Making
on to our
somebody else wrong or bad.
absolutely, yeah, and holding on to our story. But then you've got to ask yourself, okay, what do I get out of this? How, because if you're continually holding on to it, after a certain point, there must be something you love about it, or it
Well,
gives you something.
maybe somebody giving me validation. Oh, poor you. Look at what you went through. That's
Yeah,
awful.
yeah. So that's not fun to be around either. And that, I think, when it goes to the extreme, the victim becomes the victimizer.
Yeah.
That can, and that's, again, that's not wrong either. But it's just, hey, is that working for you?
Right. Right. Is
Um,
this how you want to be? Is this how you want to live? Whatever
yeah,
is going on around you.
yeah, definitely. And I liked what you said. It doesn't have to define you.
Hmm.
In fact, if you're defining yourself as a victim, then hey, you're always going to be a victim.
Right. As
Well, in fact, any day.
opposed to saying I'm a survivor. Look at how strong I am. Look at what I've come through,
Yeah,
and I am still
yeah.
here, standing up
I'm not.
and
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not surviving. Hey, I'm thriving.
exactly.
Mm. And that is this. That is. What if every wrongness that you've judged yourself as a wrongness was your strongness?
Hmm.
That you had the strength to go through that.
That's amazing. Can you repeat that again, please?
What if? What if every judgment where you're making yourself wrong? What if every wrongness was in truth your strongness? How
I
about
think
that?
I think that's what it is. I think we need to shift that paradigm.
And being with that and really acknowledging, um, wow, I I did that. I came through it.
Hmm.
And now what? Now what? Now what would I like to create? Um, how would I like my life to be?
Hmm.
Fun, laughter, um, ease,
Joy, ease,
ease.
peace.
Yeah. Well, in fact, there's the mantra of Access Consciousness is all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory.
Mm.
And glory, because some people think it might have religious connotations, is actually now I'm going to forget what it is. It's like joyous abundance of everything.
Mm.
And ease is not to be read or misunderstood as easy. So it's
Uh-huh.
the good, the bad, and the ugly. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I mean, try it. Say it 10 times in the morning and 10 times before you go to bed. And just that, or whatever, whenever you're kind of in something, or life's, serving you lemons and you want to make lemonade,
Uh-huh.
all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And whilst I'm sharing some tools, I might as well say the other thing is, how does it get any better than that? And what else is possible?
Mm.
Because so many times I hear people, like, a really great thing happens, they're like, hey, it doesn't get any better than that. So immediately they put a ceiling on it. So
Right.
I'm like, well, what if it could be, hey, how does it get better than that? And then more space shows up and something more wonderful happens.
Uh-huh.
And even if it's shitty stuff happens, how does it get any better than this? And what else is possible? So it can be used in every scenario or wherever you find yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not to get an answer, it's to open the space to see what shows up. And as I've said, the whole point of access is to empower you to know what you know. Nobody's ever going to tell you the answer. And even if they did, and they have, unless you come up with it, I'm not really sure it's valid.
Yeah.
Because it has to come from you.
Yeah. I mean, people can
No.
give you advice and people can, guide you and give you insight and wisdom and whatever. But
Yeah.
until you're ready, until you acknowledge it, until you go, oh, yeah, now I get it. It's like an
You get it when you
alcohol.
get it.
Yeah, it's like an alcoholic. You can tell them it's bad for you to drink. You shouldn't drink, but until they're ready to put down the drink and discover something different,
Yep.
um,
And they may never. And
they may never.
it's okay too.
Yeah. But it comes back to your choice.
Yeah. Your choice creates your reality. Your point, or like you said earlier, every choice you've made has gotten you to the point where you are today.
But that doesn't mean that you can't make a different choice going forward.
Absolutely.
If the other
Yeah.
ones weren't serving you.
Yeah. And they're not all going to be, well, there is no right or no wrong. They're just choices that you've made. But I think it's easy to think, oh God, that was a bad choice, or it's all very well, a few months, years, whatever later, but that's kind of a fruitless labor. What can you choose now?
Because I've had this sort of philosophical discussion with a couple of friends of mine, and even my ex, about even when you quote unquote don't make a choice, you're still making a choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Because people say, oh, well, I don't want to choose because I don't have all the answers and I haven't done all the research and whatever. Well, you not choosing is still making a choice to just be where
Yeah.
you are until you're ready to make a different choice.
And also, what if you had to make lots of choices? What if because sometimes when you're saying, oh, a lot of us, we need to be perfect, right? We got to be perfect at something before we allow ourselves to even do it. Well, you're never going to do it.
Right.
And that's not wrong either, but I'm saying that, what if you made a choice and within a couple of minutes it's like, oh, that's not working for me, not because you're flaky, but you just get that awareness, no, but you've kind of committed, you've made that choice. And equally, you can make that choice and it can be really wonderful until you're keeping the question, is this working for me? Or you can tell if it's working for you, if you're happy, or it's not so great. You can choose every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And another thing, with, I think, abuse, it kind of is a prerequisite for, well, not a prerequisite, you end up really being very unkind to your body, which probably goes back to what we began talking about. And I wonder if people could, or those people could start to acknowledge their bodies, and be kind to their bodies and be grateful for their bodies, and maybe touch their bodies in places and just be really, oh, thank you, sweet body. But we look in the mirror and like, oh my God, or, how often do we do that? Oh, I've got lines, oh, I'm saggy, and blah, 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 blah. what if you could just really acknowledge and be kind to your body, um, or look in the mirror for a few minutes and just really acknowledge you and see yourself. And that can be really challenging for people because they've had all these points of view or, horrible things said to them and done to them.
Right. Like you're not enough.
But your body has gone through that and been with you all the time. And your body is your best friend, but we don't really treat our bodies like that, do we? A lot of us.
No, I mean, I always think about, I mean, as you were talking about this, I was thinking your body is your sacred temple. And so what if we honored and revered our sacred temple as a sacred temple should be honored and revered?
Yeah. And also not beat ourselves up when we find ourselves not doing that, like going back to the judgment thing. That it's like, oh, whoops. Okay.
Wonder what.
Sorry, body. Now
yeah. Yeah, like being more curious. Like, oh, wonder what that's about.
Yeah. Or I wonder what, hey, body, what do you require? Maybe it requires a massage or a walk in the park or hug a tree or go for a swim or dance or sing or being the question of that.
And even with the choices, doing the same thing with your choices. Because I feel like some people sort of live their lives saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that because it took me off my path. And I think nothing can take you off your path.
What's your path?
That is, it has to be your path because that's what happened. You can't, you can't say I coulda, shoulda, woulda. I mean, you can say that, but how is it helpful for you?
But does anything ever happen to you, or are they just all your choices?
Right. Right. Because even the things, okay, say you make a choice, and even things that happen to you as a result of your choice, it's still because you chose to show up in the space. And so if you, and we talked about this the last time we talked, that sense, because I call it accepting and you call it allowing, just allowing that all of those things that happen to you are parts that still are propelling you in a way that allows you to explore more of your own light and beingness and expansiveness. And saying, this is what I want more of in my life, or this is what I don't want in my life. So I'm going to leave that, I'm going to leave those bags behind, and I'm going to continue to choose things that make me feel that joy and ease and glory.
Yeah, definitely. And something I was going to say, but it's gone out of my head. Everything is a choice.
And how does this translate into your relationships?
Being in allowance, not making people wrong, focusing on, I think, on yourself and what you require, rather than making the demand that the other person provide it for you, not making them the source of your happiness or your source. In fact, not making anything else the source of you. Being willing to acknowledge that we are the source of whatever we want to create.
And does your partner necessarily have to subscribe to that way of thinking?
No, No, not at all. It only takes one person, I think, to change, and that's, again, a point of view. If you're projecting onto that person, oh, they've got to change this, they've got to change that, they've got to be this way, they've got to say that, oh, you don't respect me, you don't love me, all that judge. And
Mm-hmm.
what is that creating? All that's what you're going to get back, because that's what you're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
What if you could acknowledge, this is what I require, and you don't have to say anything because you're being it. You're being that space, which is an invitation. And then maybe the person doesn't match that, or just kind of disappears from your life,
Mm-hmm.
or shows up in a completely different way. And I think sometimes when we sort of step into our power, we're kind of willing to, in that space of really making us the source, knowing that whatever happens, we've got our own backs. We don't particularly need anyone else, and really being willing to lose everything, which can be kind of, I guess, a bit scary, but ultimately it's really freeing. And it's not necessarily that you are going to lose everything, but you kind of got to have that willingness to take that leap. And it
And
doesn't have to be a big leap. It can just be
what does
different
that look?
choices.
What does that look like when you are willing to let go of everything?
Well, when James and I were not having a great time, it just was out of the blue. I think we're done, and I'm like, yeah. And then at that space, I was kind of, yeah, I was in this. I'd actually thought that we would end the relationship, get divorced, but I was a space of not in need, or I was just willing to be in that space to lose everything. And it wasn't so cognitive. I was just space, and whatever happened or didn't happen was fine. It was okay. I
Mm-hmm.
was okay. And then I what actually then occurred was, we got to a place, really surprisingly for me, from that space, was we started to have the relationship and the closeness and the intimacy and the vulnerability that I always knew was possible, but it hadn't quite shown up. There'd been maybe little snippets, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
So that was amazing that he showed up in a different way for me, and we showed up in different ways for each other.
And that wasn't by you saying, "Hey, I need you to do this."
No, not at all. It was me being, I'm done with this. This doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for you either.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, and there are still times when I wouldn't say we slip back, but then there's other stuff that happens. Life happens, and then you're still at a choice. And if it got to the point where something, or my awareness, there's like a deal breaker here, then I'd have to look at that again.
Mm-hmm.
And be willing to look, and whether we're going to be married forever or not, who knows? That's all choice.
Mm-hmm.
But if it starts to really not work, then it's looking at that, and really then not from a place of projection, or this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, because there's always going to be stuff that, I don't know, in any relationship,
Bugs you.
but to really, huh?
I said there's always going to be stuff that bugs you about the other person.
Yeah. But what about acknowledging, rather than, because you can just get lost in all of that judgment, and it's not to dismiss it, but it's also we can go into crazy and just make everything wrong, and just go into that rabbit hole, and before we know it, everything's wrong, and we can't see and be grateful for the contribution they make in our lives. And so there's that as well, which I'm aware of.
How long did it take you and James to go from your place of, yeah, this isn't working, to, oh my gosh,
It was really quick. 3 weeks.
Wow. So do you feel like you showed up differently first? Was there a first? Or were you waiting for him to show up differently?
I think it was just like a miracle occurred. He just became completely different and much gentler, and well, he's kind of gentle anyway, but just lost that spikiness, that and we were just kind to one another. But it's difficult to remember now, but I'm remembering it that he was completely different, and I can only take from that I was obviously being that on some level to invite that in. I was that kind of space. I was expansive enough to ask for something better, even if cognitively I thought it was over. I always believe in, what else, and there's got to be a better way. And yeah.
Because sometimes I wonder, I still, even though I feel like I made the right decision to get divorced, there's still sometimes that I wonder, well, could I have been differently? Could I have been differently, or what could I have done differently in order to prevent that
true? Is that just you kind of still, did I do enough?
Maybe judging myself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also to acknowledge the courage it takes to kind of make that step, to step out of that abuse or whatever it was you experienced or called it, or whatever that was for you.
I don't even want to call it anything.
Exactly.
I don't want to call it anything. I just know that he wasn't very kind to me.
Yeah.
And that there were a lot of other people around me, friends and family and coworkers, who were very kind to me. And I was like, this is how my spouse should be treating me.
Yeah.
And, even after we had talked about it numerous times, it's like, I want someone who has my back. I want to feel safe and secure in your presence. And I don't. And maybe that was just about me. Maybe it wasn't, when you're in a couple, it is about both of you, but it's also about taking responsibility for how I was and how I wanted to show up. And, the peace and sense of happiness that I needed to create for myself, regardless of whether or not he was in the picture.
Exactly. And so to acknowledge that you'd got to that space, it was like, no, enough. And of course, there might be times when you're, I don't know, just a memory comes up, or you get triggered by something. And that's not wrong either.
No, I think
it's
that's
just
part of the grief.
being the rock in the stream. Yeah, and being the rock in the stream, it's like, oh, okay, hi, bye.
Yeah,
because like you said the other day, acknowledge it, bless it, send it on its way.
Yeah, because I think, had we stayed together, maybe none of this other stuff would have happened. I feel like it's all a part of my mission and purpose in life, because of the experience that I had in my own marriage, and all the struggles and the ways that I judged and blamed and criticized both myself and him.
Yeah.
You know, that I had to learn how to take care of myself. I had to learn to make choices that gave me a sense of peace and joy and ease and glory,
Yeah.
instead of the fight and struggle and the fact that I was holding on to our relationship so tightly because I was afraid. I was afraid.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
finally said, you know what, I have to let this go, I felt so much more peace and ease
Mm.
and freedom and
Yeah.
and space to allow all of these other really beautiful things and people to come into my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And how much of a contribution with all, what you're doing with your podcasts and everything else, are you to other people who are in the same situation as you? That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a great conversation we've had.
So this is, so
How's it
this
getting
is,
better?
yeah, so this is this whole thing of not judging ourselves, I mean, because
Mm.
I know even when we talked last time that you were feeling a little down, and
Mm.
and it's like, yeah, I'm judging myself for feeling down. And so what does that mean for me? What choice do I need to make? um,
Mm.
what's a different choice that I need to make to help
Yeah.
myself, to help create what I want more of?
Yeah. Yeah. And what does my body require? Maybe it just needs a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
I've been, I've had like 2 weekends of intense body work and processing, and sometimes, it can take a while for your body to kind of catch up and really, I'll say process it, that it's all there through the processes, but sometimes, yeah, it can take a while for the body to catch up with the being
Mm-hmm.
and like the release the stuff, or yeah. So
Well, and don't you feel like a lot of, we're so busy doing, most of us
yeah.
are busy doing, and we feel like
Yeah.
we don't do enough. And then it's like, well, when do we give ourselves permission to just be?
Absolutely. And then when you're being you, like I said to you when
Being
I met you in Paris, and you met Dr. Dane here and his book, Being You, Changing the World, nobody can be you. You're absolutely unique. We each have unique gifts and capacities and potencies that are what the world requires, actually. And the question is, maybe being the question of, I wonder what that is for me. I wonder what I truly be. What are my gifts and capacities?
I think a lot of people go through their whole life not really knowing who they are.
Mm, yeah. There's a lot of people that are asleep. They've got their eyes open, but they're still fast asleep. And that's not wrong either. Um, and again, you get that wake up call, or maybe you don't. Um, but it creates a lot more on the planet of consciousness and serves the earth. And what contribution are we being when we be ourselves?
Mm-hmm. When we even
Uh,
allow ourselves to be ourselves.
yeah. And how many of us have been shut down for being too much, or learning to kind of be seen and not heard, or just stuff from, childhood, or all of those points of view that have been impelled on us,
All of the times
or it's
when
just
we
kind of
feel
in
like we need,
society.
yeah, all of the times we feel like we need to hide or pretend
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of what we think or how we think other people will judge us.
Mm.
I mean, this was This
Mm.
was the beautiful thing about the cruise I went on. You know, it was a disco cruise. And so there was a theme, right? The disco, like showing up in these crazy outfits. And it was so liberating that people showed up in a lot of crazy outfits, myself included. and
Mhm.
and I thought, what a beautiful thing this is, where there's no judgment. It's all acceptance and allowance of how people show up and who they are. And it doesn't matter, you know, political opinions or sexual preferences or, you know, religious or cultural differences. I mean, everybody was just there to express who they were and share in this commonality of the music and the dance. And what a
Wonderful.
what a beautiful life it would be if all of us could do that every day.
Yeah. Well, that's an invitation to people, isn't it? I wonder what they could take from that.
Yeah. How do you want to show up today? What are you feeling? What are you wanting to express today?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you contribute to your own joy, ease, and glory? And when you do that, it naturally has that energetic ripple effect to allow other people to, or invite other people to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
And where does it start?
Choice
Mm-hmm.
with you, acknowledging you,
Mm-hmm.
making you the valuable product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
But,
people are going to,
but
I was thinking about judgment. People are going to judge you anyway. You know, you're too this, you're too that, blah, 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 blah. And hey, so what?
mm-hmm.
What if you could, like, I have my back? And yeah, and what, as you say, with you, what beautiful experiences, what beautiful people have shown up in your life, more kind, and they have your back, and the experiences that you're having.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a choice. And little choices doesn't have to be so big. Oh, I'm going to be grateful for me today. I'm going to, stroke my body, even if it's just my arm, or, oh, thank you, ears. How often do we like appreciate our ears? What if we could do that for 5 minutes?
Uh-huh.
I know it's people maybe think that's silly, but our bodies are amazing.
So how do we honor the sacred temple that we are?
Yeah. What would be fun for you? It's going to be individual to you. What would
Mm-hmm.
be fun? Maybe just to start to ask your body, get to being a bit more aware of it and maybe in a bit more communion with it.
Mm-hmm. So whatever makes you feel like light, and
Yeah, and it might be, because
expansive.
yeah, exactly, expansive, and it's kind of, and it might be, I don't want to say a struggle, but I don't know, challenging, because if you've really shut down your body or not listened to it, but again, that's still a choice. It's to keep going, never give up, never give in, never quit.
Mm-hmm.
And your body, if you're kind to your body, I guarantee you it will be responsive. It will give you everything that you desire.
And what about to the people that are struggling with cancer or some chronic illness, or, you know, how do you help them honor their bodies, what their body is experiencing in this moment?
If I was doing a process, I would just be saying, hi, what are you trying to tell me?
Mm.
What are you dying to get out of? What if this is the only way to get out of a situation? And what else is possible?
Mm. I feel like those two questions, Deborah, are key. One, what are you trying to tell me? Whether it's your own body, whether it's your partner, whether it's whatever experience you're having in the world, what are you trying to tell me? And what else is possible?
Yeah. And what is your awareness? You know, your body, body, what is it? Your, even if, I know, back pain or whatever pain, what if the pain is, it's a capacity, it's a power you have that you're not acknowledging?
Mm.
Um,
So it's areas in your life where you feel disempowered.
well, what do
Maybe.
you know? What do you know? I'm not telling you.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Areas in my life that I feel disempowered, or
Yeah.
that I'm not acknowledging my true essence,
Mm.
which is wholeness
Yeah.
and joy and
Yeah.
ease and glory.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I think it's kind of a good point to
Yeah.
come to our
For our first
end of our
conversation,
conversation. Yeah.
I have one final question to ask that I ask all my
Okay.
guests
Okay.
is how do you define real love?
Um, well, I think it, I think the word love for me is so loaded anyway. People say it and they don't mean it.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think real love maybe starts with yourself. If
Mm-hmm.
you can't be vulnerable and loving of yourself, then you can't with anyone else, truly. Um, that's what I would say for me. And yeah, that.
That, yeah, that, that, which, I mean, segues into the thing that I say at the end of every podcast is that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself.
Absolutely. Because everything will expand from that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything will, you know, that is acknowledging you as a valuable product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you asked me some questions in order to prepare for this podcast. One of my things was to say is never put anyone above you,
Mm-hmm.
never put anyone in front of you, never put anyone on a pedestal, because you are the valuable product.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, you really diminish yourself to less than,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all equal in value and worthiness and
Yeah.
sacredness and worthy to receive and,
Yeah,
have
and
all
we're all,
possibilities around us.
yeah, and we all contribute
Uh-huh.
one way or another.
Yeah. So, if people want to find out more information about you or access consciousness or,
They can go on to www.accessconsciousness.com.
mm-hmm.
As they can find facilitators there. It accesses, I think, in about 173 different countries.
That's amazing,
Various,
by the way.
yeah, absolutely. When you think that it started by Gary Douglas, he started in his back room, in one of his rooms, with like three participants, And recently, that was called the Global Foundation in Brazil. They had, I think, 3,200 people. I think 2,800 in the room, and the rest were online.
Wow.
So amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the book, I mean, when I met you, I got the book immediately, Being You, Changing the World. And it was like, wow. And then when I ran into Dr. Jane out the elevator, another synchronistic meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, I just learned about you. And this is so amazing. And you're doing such great work in the world. And, you know, and then our connection has developed and grown. And, you know,
and by the way, Dr. Dane was severely abused physically, sexually, emotionally, financially.
Wow.
So given where he is now, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. How can it get better than this?
Have to choose. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been fun. Thank you for inviting me.
This has been amazing, Debra. I'm so glad that you came.
Yeah, me too. Eventually we got it done.
Yay! And I know we're going to have plenty of more conversations, because this is just this is just part of our journey together.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
How does it get any better than this?
Tahiti in November.
Yeah.
And just to continue having these conversations. I mean, our conversation last week was so great. You know, I feel like I was able to contribute to you, and I know you were able to contribute to me. And it's a beautiful symbiotic giving and receiving and expanding. And
yeah.
So thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm so what a synchronistic. Yeah, that whole thing in Paris was amazing.
Yeah. So these are the miracles that happen every day when you choose to allow and be open to them.
Yeah.
So for all of my listeners, I know you will get so much wisdom and insight and inspiration from this conversation. So please subscribe and share with your friends the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, as well as provide any feedback or suggestions about, topics you may want to hear more about. And if you would like more information about me and the work that I do, helping people overcome heartbreak and betrayal and creating more real love in your life, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Awakening with Dawn, and feel free to send me a message. My website is being worked on as we speak, and hopefully will be coming to a computer near you in the near future. But for now, Facebook and Instagram, you can find me. I do lots of videos, and, I'm really just trying to help people recognize and remember that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. So it starts with the compassion and the kindness and the non-judgment, and the allowance of who you truly are, so that you can show up in your life and show up in your relationships and create a more expansive, ease, joy, and glory-filled life for yourself and the people around you. So thank you again, Debra, for being here. And listeners,
thank you. Look, my if people wanted to get hold of me, that my email is debs.putt@gmail.com.
P-U-T-T.
P-U-T-T, yes. For coaching. Obviously, I can't do body work over the phone, but I can do Symphony of Possibilities over the phone, which is just an amazing, really lovely energy to facilitate. So.
Okay. Great. I will also put that in the show notes, Debra.
Okay.
So how people can get in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So listeners, thank you so much for watching, and every day wake up to more and more real love, and we'll see you next time. Take care till then. Bye.